Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Loop Secure Threat Intelligence Report for July 2022. I am very excited to be guiding you through all the interesting topics that have been happening this month, but before we get started, I will give you a proper introduction. My name is Holly Baker. I'm a threat detection analyst here in Loop Secure, working from within our Secure Operations Center, and I'm delighted to be presenting to you today. A bit about me. Loop Secure has a number of client tenancies maintained within our security information and event management technology. It is my job to research and develop new senior use cases based on the most up-to-date threat intelligence, so we may provide our customers with robust protection analytics. We have a wide variety of clients here at Loop Secure with unique log sources that often require custom analytics rules, so it is my responsibility to construct these customized use cases based off the data we receive on a case-by-case basis, so that our rules are tailored to each client's cybersecurity needs. I am also responsible for such tasks as tuning our analytics rules, writing our security advisories, threat hunting, and most recently, the Loop Secure threat intelligence briefings you will be hearing each month. Before I begin, I just want to mention that not only will these briefings cover monthly cybersecurity topics, but I also aim to explain them at a high level so that everyone, regardless of their technical understanding, can benefit from this information and learn along the way. So with that being said, it's nice to meet you. Let's get started. Let's have a look at today's agenda. We'll be starting off by checking out the latest vulnerabilities and patches affecting some of our larger tech companies, including Microsoft, Adobe, Cisco, and Google. We'll then move on to what's trending in cybersecurity headlines this month, with Microsoft being the star of the show. Windows Auto Patch is now live, and we'll be covering what's happening with the Office macro default blocking, including rollbacks and changes that have occurred this month. In cybercrime news, ransomware money returned to the victims, how the FBI disrupted North Korean ransomware activities and gained access to 2 of their cryptocurrency accounts. And lastly, I'll be giving you a sneak peek into one of our recent Loop Secure incident response engagements, how threat actors injected malicious commands into the back end of an e-commerce website. So let's kick off with the vulnerabilities and patches for July 2022. This month's Microsoft Patch Tuesday had 84 reported vulnerabilities, including printer updates, a zero-day vulnerability fix, and Windows Auto Patch, which we'll dive into shortly. We'll also be taking a look at the Office macro changes this month, as we've seen numerous rollbacks and adjustments to security warnings regarding how these macros are run in Office. We also saw 30 Azure vulnerabilities this month, along with reportedly troublesome Windows 11 patches, causing some minor application crashes and pesky start menu interruptions. As you can see here, we have a breakdown of this month's bugs, including 53 elevation of privilege, 4 security feature bypasses, 12 remote code execution, 11 information disclosure, and lastly, 5 denial of service, which gives us this beautiful pie chart here. Let's start by having a look at the Microsoft zero-day and critical vulnerability patches released this month, along with some new CVEs. CVE refers to common vulnerability and exposures, which is the key that we use to identify and reference vulnerabilities. It is also a publicly disclosed list of security flaws so that you may be able to look up any of the CVEs I mentioned in this presentation by searching that name online. Starting with the fix for Client Server Runtime Subsystem, or CSRSS zero-day. For those that may be wondering, Microsoft defines a zero-day as a publicly disclosed or actively exploited vulnerability with no official fix at the time. Now, this vulnerability was discovered internally by Microsoft, which means that the details surrounding this exploit are somewhat limited at the time of recording this video, but they have stated that, quote, an attacker who successfully exploited this vulnerability could gain system privileges. So it can be surmised that remote code execution could allow for an attacker to perform lateral movement and escalate privileges on a machine that's vulnerable to this CVE. It was given a common vulnerability score of 7.8 and a medium severity tag, as a patch for this is currently available, but no proof of concept has been released at the time of this recording. For those who are unsure, CSRSS is embedded into the graphical console and GUI subsystems of the Windows operating system. So any attempt to limit this would result in an operating system critical failure, so it is strongly recommended to patch this ASAP. Following the zero-day, we have some new critical vulnerability patches for Remote Procedure Call, Windows Network File System, and Windows Graphics Component. Remote Procedure Call Vulnerability CVE 2022-22038 has been defined as a high-complexity remote code execution attack by Microsoft. Now, they have claimed that it would take, quote, multiple exploitation attempts to take advantage of this vulnerability. The presumption is that the code execution would occur at elevated privileges. However, this was not specified in the bulletin. For the 3rd month in a row, a critical network file system, or NFS, bug has made an appearance this week with CVE 2022-22029 and 39, which are both remote code execution vulnerabilities. Make sure if you are running NFS, you don't ignore this patch. And lastly, for remote code execution, we have Windows Graphics Component CVE 2022-30221, which has been listed as not publicly disclosed or exploited at this time. Azure was hit hard this month, coming in with 33 application flaws, all fixing the disaster recovery tool Azure Site Recovery. For those who don't know, Azure Site Recovery is a tool suite aimed at providing disaster recovery services for cloud resources such as utilities for replication and data recovery. One of the larger bugs this month was discovered by Tenable, which found the service to be vulnerable to DLL hijacking attacks. For those who aren't so sure, a dynamic link libraries or DLL file contains resources that an application would need to run. Therefore, a DLL hijack is injecting malicious code into that application by replacing that necessary DLL file with an infected one. Now, Microsoft has assigned this issue CVE 2022-33675 and has given it a CVS score of 7.8. Tenable has posted a security advisory on this CVE and a patch is currently available. Moving on to other major tech players, Adobe released 4 advisories this month with updates to fix 27 vulnerabilities affecting Adobe Acrobat, RoboHelp, Reader, Character Animator, and Photoshop. 15 of these critical vulnerabilities were tied to Acrobat and Reader, stating that successful exploitation could lead to arbitrary code execution and memory leaks. 2 critical bugs were also found in Character Animator, which could allow a threat actor to execute arbitrary code on victims' machines. Cisco also issued 10 security updates this month, which include 2 critical bugs affecting Cisco Expressway Series software and Telepresence VCS software. Cisco stated that these bugs are said to affect the default configuration for both applications, but they're not aware of any exploitation in the wild. Now, patches for both of these have been released, so make sure if you are using this software, you apply these patches ASAP. And this month, Google released a Chrome update addressing 4 security fixes, one of which is known as a heap buffer overflow 0-day vulnerability. This is the 4th Chrome 0-day patch this year, so always make sure you're keeping your browsers up to date. The 0-day affects WebRTC or real-time communications, an open source project that enables real-time voice, text, and video capabilities between web browsers and devices. Now, this month, a buffer overflow vulnerability has been detected in that component. If you're wondering what buffer overflow refers to, it occurs when the volume of data exceeds the storage capacity of the memory buffer. So your application or program is writing data to a buffer, it can then overrun that boundary and write over an adjacent memory location, which can cause unwanted responses such as damage to files or a data change. Now, Google are aware that an exploit for this does exist in the wild, so it is recommended that you patch this accordingly. And lastly, for Google, July brings us the latest set of Android security updates, outlining a number of vulnerabilities in the Android framework, system, kernel, and vendor components. So that catches us up this month on vulnerabilities and patches. So let's dive into some cyber security news. Starting off with Windows Auto Patch, an automated service engineered to keep Windows and Office always up to date. So as opposed to the monthly Patch Tuesday, this service aims to gradually release fixes as they become available. Now, this streamlines the patching process. However, there are a number of readiness checks that need to be completed before one can put their feet up and depend on Auto Patch. So this service only applies to E3 and E5 licenses. You'll also need to be using Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Intune. Now, if you're not across the Microsoft suite, Azure AD is a cloud-based identity access and management service, allowing configuration accessibility for users and groups to services and resources. So you can use Azure AD to access external resources like Microsoft 365, the Azure portal, software as a service applications, and also internal resources such as corporate intranet applications. Microsoft Intune, on the other hand, is a cloud-based service focusing on mobile device management and mobile application management. There are a few more prerequisites for Windows Auto Patch to suit your needs, such as user accounts must be managed by Azure Active Directory or hybrid Azure Active Directory join, a proxy or firewall using TLS 1.2, and to ensure that 4 Microsoft URLs are always available. As Simon Sharwood from the APAC editor pointed out, one of these URLs has the very comforting name of logcollection.mmd.microsoft.com. Now, although this may take the pressure off your IT team come Patch Tuesday, there are some risks associated with this rapid-fire patch and go method. Bugs hiding in a patch could make their way through. Microsoft's Go Live announcement did state, quote, because the auto patch service has such a broad footprint and pushes updates around the clock, we are able to detect potential issues among an incredibly diverse array of hardware and software configurations. This means that an issue that may have an impact on your portfolio could be detected and resolved before ever reaching your estate. Now, as comforting as that may sound, it's not a foolproof plan to prevent a bad patch from coming through. However, Microsoft has promised that as more customers use AutoPatch, automation should improve matters beyond its 99.6% app compatibility rate in software updates. Microsoft have released an AutoPatch document outlining all the prerequisites that you can review online and also details on enrolling tenants in AutoPatch. It has been a wild ride for Microsoft this month regarding changes to VBA macros in Office. Since April, VBA macros obtained from the internet have been blocked from running by default, affecting Office apps on Windows devices such as Excel, PowerPoint, Visio, and Word. However, Microsoft rolled back on this change, claiming that the decision was based on feedback until further notice. This change surprised many IT professionals as it was described as a game changer for keeping systems secure. Now, if you haven't heard of VBA macros before, malicious code hidden within online documents is a very common phishing and malware distribution technique. VBA macros have been a very popular method of pushing malware such as TrickBot and QBot via downloading malicious attachments hidden within documents online. Now, Microsoft rolled back to the old security alert pictured here with a large enable content button prompt at the top of the document. The risk here was that it looked very similar to the usual enable editing banner you might see when editing documents, meaning it at a glance that users could easily enable macros without thinking twice. However, Microsoft did state that the change was temporary and that they were fully committed to making the default change for all users. Now, at the time of preparing this information, there was no news on when we were going to see this new security alert enabled for Office. That is until early this week when Microsoft announced that they were resuming the rollout of the VBA macro auto blocking. Now, this new update is aimed at preventing Office users from easily enabling macros in Office files downloaded from the internet. The new updated security alert, which you can see here, has a red banner and the text, Microsoft has blocked macros from running because the source of this file is untrusted. If clicked, the warning sends you to a link with security awareness information regarding security risks on enabling macros and instructions on how to do so if absolutely necessary. Microsoft released an update in the 365 Message Center stating that, quote, based on our review of customer feedback, we've made updates to both our end user and our admin documentation to make clearer what options you have for different scenarios. Now, Microsoft have released documentation for IT admins and the end users regarding these default macro blocks and how to prepare for this change within your organization. Microsoft users who don't want to wait for the rollout and want auto blocking enabled now can read the Microsoft tutorial for enabling auto blocking in advance. Now, Microsoft didn't shed too much light on the original reason for rolling back originally, other than stating it was due to negative feedback. However, at least now we have some closure knowing that a fantastic security control will be still available for Office users. Moving on to the topic of cybercrime this month, a statement released on the 19th of July by the US Justice Department states that they have seized and forfeited approximately $500,000 from North Korean ransomware actors. The payments seized were made by a Kansas medical facility to a North Korean ransomware gang deploying Maui ransomware. Now, if you haven't heard of Maui before, it is owned and operated by what's believed to be a North Korean advanced persistent threat group, who are notorious for exclusively attacking the US healthcare system since May 2021. The facility fell victim to Maui ransomware last year as servers used to store critical data and operate key equipment were left encrypted by Maui. Threat actors left behind a note demanding a ransom with further threats to double the amount payable within 48 hours. Although approximately $120,000 of Bitcoin ransom was paid, the FBI followed crypto breadcrumbs left by Chinese-based money launderers known for assisting North Korean threat actors in cashing out ransom payments. Additional blockchain analysis revealed that the same accounts contained ransom payments from other victims. The money seized included payments made by the Kansas medical facility, along with cryptocurrency that the criminals were using to launder the hospital's cash. A quote from the report states that, thanks to the rapid reporting and cooperation from a ransomware victim, the FBI and Justice Department prosecutors have disrupted the activities of a North Korean state-sponsored group deploying ransomware known as Maui. Not only did this allow them to recover their ransom payment as well as a ransom paid by a previous victim, but they were also able to identify a previously unidentified ransomware strain. The FBI has managed to seize the contents of 2 cryptocurrency accounts receiving funds from ransomware victims. The District of Kansas has begun proceedings to forfeit the threat actors' funds and return the stolen money to the victims. Lastly, I'll be going over the latest incident response engagement performed by Loop Secure, where our cyber incident response process allowed Loop to hunt down an input validation vulnerability in a client environment. Last month, Loop Secure were engaged by an Australian organisation to investigate the suspected data breach of a web server hosting websites for online stores. Forensic analysis confirmed that an unknown threat actor injected malicious commands into the back end of the website, and malicious scripts were deployed to their server. A multi-stage process exploiting a vulnerability in the version of the platform operating on the client server allowed the injection and execution of malicious commands. Loop's forensic analysis of the web server hosting to their websites determined that the initial attack vector was a successful execution of script files, which were deployed to the root of the web server folder via command injection. The initial script was downloaded onto the server and was accessed via a remote host shortly after. The successful execution of this script gathered sensitive system information, including credentials to the other services within the environment. The script subsequently deleted audit log entries containing the command injections as an anti-forensic technique. The script also presented sensitive financial and user information, which was exfiltrated remotely, created a new admin user within the environment, and downloaded 2 additional scripts, including an obfuscated backdoor file. A second script was also found, capable of further footprinting the server and performing further reconnaissance of the environment. The script was also able to load further malicious scripts and create backdoors. Loop Secure Forensics shows that there were multiple attempts from the threat actor to access the second script, and of those few successful attempts, fortunately very limited data was exfiltrated. As part of the script's execution, queries to delete sensitive information from services were included. However, these appear to be anti-forensic actions to remove audit logs as opposed to deleting financial and user data. All user account passwords were reset within the system to prevent further compromise of the database. This methodology is similar to recent cyber incidents which have used the same technique to embed malicious code into components of e-commerce platforms and appear designed to capture customer PII during the transaction process. Now, our Loop Secure Operations Center engaged in continuous monitoring of this client, where I created a number of custom threat detection analytics rules to run across their tenancy. I was looking for attack vectors such as further malicious command injections, manipulation of firewall logs, the specific indicators of compromise we found associated with the malicious scripts, process termination, and a number of other methods, just in case these threat actors came back for round 2. Thanks to Loop Secure's cyber incident response process, the initial attack vector was quickly identified and handled accordingly. So with that being said, that concludes the July 2022 briefing. I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next month for the August Threat Intelligence briefing.